What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be breaking down the Raiden Shogun's kit so that you guys can get a better understanding on how her abilities work. If you've already tried looking up her skills yourself, you still might be confused on how she works because her abilities are confusing as hell. It took me a ton of research and everything still isn't even clear. She is by far the most unique character we've ever gotten in Genshin Impact, and she might be breaking a ton of rules that a lot of other characters have set for us and that we are accustomed to. And so with that in mind, most of this information comes from leaks and data mined information. So with that in mind, remember that a lot of these things can change when she finally gets released. At the same time though, a lot of this information was also confirmed in the recent live stream. So what is the Raiden Shogun's role if you were to put her on your team? She is all about generating energy. She is a support character and sub DPS character. For the most part, you are going to completely ignore her physical normal attacks, and her true power comes from being a battery and for dealing damage while she is in her elemental burst mode. These are the Raiden Shogun's stats. Her base attack is 337, which is higher than the likes of Ganyu and Diluc, but lower than the likes of Eula and Xiao. Her ascension stat is energy recharge, and you'll see that this is going to be useful for her when we go over her skills. So the first thing that you need to know about the Raiden Shogun is about her resolve stacks. She will gain stacks based on how much energy is consumed by her party members. This means that characters with higher energy cost bursts will generate higher resolve stacks for the Raiden Shogun. Here is a chart that comes from the Raiden mains subreddit that shows you how many stacks each character can give the Raiden Shogun, including her C1. The Raiden Shogun C1 just gives her 80% more stacks if the character that uses a burst is of the electro element, and 20% more stacks if it is a non-electro character. There is some rounding that needs to happen, and so we are not 100% certain on how MiHoYo does their rounding. Resolve stacks can also begin stacking without the prior need to activate any skills. Unfortunately, I can't share any footage of that, but let's just say I've seen the future. Yeah, let's just go with that. Resolve stacks also apparently last 300 seconds, which is equivalent to 5 minutes. So you don't need to worry about losing them while you're in combat. So now you know how resolve stacks work, but what exactly does it do? Put simply, whenever the Raiden Shogun casts her elemental burst, she is going to consume all of the stacks, and while in her elemental burst mode, she is going to deal more damage. We'll get into more specifics about that when we take a look at her elemental burst skill. Next up is the Raiden's E skill, and it's a very simple attack. It's very similar to Albedo's E skill in that it's going to deal a coordinated attack with your active party member every 0.9 seconds. It has an incredibly long duration of 25 seconds, so if you're dealing a motion value of 75% every second, you multiply this number by 25, and the total scaling comes out to be around 1,890% motion value scaling. There's also a secondary effect here, and it gives a 0.3% elemental burst damage bonus per energy consumed when that burst is cast. Characters with an 80 cost burst will get a 24% damage bonus, characters with 60 costs will get an 18% damage bonus, and characters with 40 costs will get a 12% damage bonus. The scaling on this is also affected by the talent level of the Raiden Shogun's E skill. And I also assume that this works for the Raiden Shogun herself, and her elemental burst costs 90, so this means she would give herself a 27% damage bonus at talent level 10. Here's a quick little chart to show you the damage bonuses at various different talent levels. Pause the video if you want to take a closer look. I also assume that this damage bonus is going to be additive with any other damage bonuses that your current characters have. So to be honest, I think this is a pretty good skill and very underrated. Now let's talk about the Raiden Shogun's elemental burst, which is the main draw for a lot of people because they love the booba sword. So yeah, this is the skill that transforms the Raiden Shogun's stance into her sword mode and allows her to deal AoE electro damage with her normal charged and plunging attacks for about 7 seconds. The damage that she deals is based on the number of resolve stacks that she consumes upon casting her elemental burst, and while in this mode she's going to generate energy for all of her team members. So it's on her elemental burst description that we get a little bit more information on her resolve stack mechanic. So even though the description for this mechanic is on her elemental burst, it is not directly tied to it. And by that I mean that you don't have to cast your elemental burst to begin gaining stacks. It's also not 100% clear whether whether or not the Raiden Shogun herself can generate stacks. From the information that we know so far, it seems that characters generate stacks at the very moment when they cast their elemental burst. So it's possible that the Raiden Shogun gives herself stacks and then she immediately consumes all of them. This is just something that we're gonna have to wait and see or be confirmed by leakers because we just don't have enough information about that just yet. So with that said, that means only 3 of your characters can begin generating resolve stacks for the Raiden. If all 3 characters have an 80 cost burst, that means they are each generating 16 resolve stacks for the Raiden Shogun, giving us a total of 48 resolve stacks. So ultimately this means that at C0 we cannot reach the max amount of resolve stacks for the Raiden Shogun. Well, at least from a single rotation of all of our characters. Now how exactly do the resolve stacks affect the Raiden Shogun's burst damage? Here's a tweet by a leaker, Bacha, that attempts to explain how this mechanic works. They are claiming that the damage bonus per resolve stack additively increases the skill's percent modifier, otherwise known as motion value. So at talent level 10, it's 7% per stack for the initial slash of her elemental burst, and 0.87% applies to the normal attacks and charge attacks during her sword stance. So the example that they gave was that at 60 stacks, the initial burst slash damage goes from 721.44% scaling to 1141.44%. Currently in the game, there are very few characters who additively increase the motion value of their skills. As far as I can recall, the only 2 characters that do this are Eula and her elemental burst, and Beto with her Tide Collar E skill. So if this turns out to be true, she'll be added to that very small list. So what is the alternative? The alternative is that it's multiplicative, kind of like Yoimiya's E skill. Let's do a quick math example on both additive and multiplicative. So if it were additive on her first attack, 79.8% plus 78.6 at 60 resolve stacks ends up being 158.4% motion value. If this was instead multiplicative, we would multiply 79.8% times 1.786. This ends up being 142.52%. So for the first hit, multiplicative has a slightly lower scaling than being additive, but that's because the scaling on this is a little bit low. If we take a look at her 5th hit damage, 131.9, if you add this ends up being 210.5%. And if it was multiplicative, it'd end up being 235.57%. So to be honest, either one seems plausible in terms of just damage output. So again, this is going to have to be something we'll have to wait and see when she actually comes out, or if there is a more credible leak that actually gives us proof. As for the initial slash damage, it 100% makes sense for it to be additive and not multiplicative, because 7% times 60 stacks is 420%, so there's no way that they are going to be increasing the damage on her initial burst slash by 400%. I personally think that's a little bit too strong, multiplying the damage by 4, but who knows, I could be totally wrong on that, and they might actually make her initial slash damage 4 times as strong with 60 resolve stacks. And now for the final part of her elemental burst. She generates elemental energy for the entire team during the duration of her Mussou Ishin. She's able to trigger the effect 5 times, once every 1 second. So taking a look at the base energy generation, at talent level 10 we get 2.5 energy. This means 2.5 multiplied by 5 is about 12.5 energy given to the team throughout the entire duration of her elemental burst. 12.5 energy seems kind of low, but this is also affected by her second passive skill, and so we'll go into more depth about that when we talk about her second passive skill. And there is one last very important note about her elemental burst skill, and it's that her normal, charge, and plunging attacks are actually considered elemental burst damage while in this mode now. This is the first time any character has done this. All of the other stance changing characters do not behave this way. Noelle and Xiao are the prime examples. For those guys, their normal charge and plunging attacks are still just considered normal charge and plunging attacks. They do not fall under the bucket of dealing elemental burst damage. So in other words, they don't get any bonuses by using the 2-piece Noblesse set or the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate set. Similarly to characters like Hu Tao and Child, their E skills change their stance, but their normal charge and plunging attacks aren't considered elemental skill damage. So this is the rule that the Raiden Shogun breaks that no other character in the game currently does. This is why the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate is currently the Raiden Shogun's best in slot. And well, actually, I forgot the most important detail. She's immune to the electrocharge elemental reaction while in this mode. So now let's talk about the Raiden Shogun's passive talents. Her first passive talent helps her generate more resolve stacks. Whenever a nearby party member gains elemental orbs or particles, then she will gain 2 more resolve stacks. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. Since the cooldown on her elemental burst is 18 seconds, this means that if you are popping her elemental burst off of cooldown, and if you are proccing this passive skill every 3 seconds, this means you can get 6 procs on it, for a total of 12 extra resolve stacks. And remember what I said before, if you're using 3 characters with 80 cost burst, you have 48 resolve stacks. So this actually gives you exactly 60 resolve stacks if everything goes perfectly. So this passive skill can actually help us reach max resolve stacks without the need for a C1. The Raiden Shogun's second passive talent is the one that a lot of people are talking about because it gives her a lot of damage bonus. This talent is going to give her electro damage bonus and energy generation based on how much energy recharge she has that's above 100%. This is why we want to build the Raiden Shogun for energy recharge. This way we build up every single part of her kit. Energy recharge for her very high cost elemental burst, energy generation for the team during her ultimate skill, as well as electro damage bonus when she wields the Mussou no Hitotachi, which is her sword stance form. So we are going to get a 0.6% greater energy restoration for each 1% above 100% energy recharge, and 0.4% electro damage bonus for each 1% above 100% energy recharge. Take a look at this table here. We can see how much percent energy restoration we get for every 20% extra energy recharge we have. We get 12% extra energy restoration, and that translates to a 0.3 extra energy generation on the base. So at a base of 2.5 energy generation, with 20% extra energy recharge, it goes up to 2.8. If you can manage 280 energy recharge, it goes up to 5.2 energy recharge every 1 second, up to a maximum of 5 procs during her elemental burst. And now for electro damage bonus, for every 20% energy recharge above the base 100%, we get 8% extra electro damage bonus. Here are some more practical situations of how much energy recharge you would have at Ascension 5, because remember the Raiden Shogun's Ascension stat is energy recharge, so if you just get her to Ascension 5, you're going to have a little bit less energy recharge than if you had her at Ascension 6. Feel free to pause here to take a look at the energy recharge you get for different combinations of artifacts and weapons, and then I'm also going to put a similar table but for Ascension 6 up on the screen. So again, pause the screen if you want to take a look. And the point of this video is not to tell you guys what is going to be the best for the Raiden Shogun yet, because like I said before, so much of this information is very much subject to change. So we're not going to be going in too much depth about the actual damage numbers she's dealing while she's in her burst mode just yet. That will come in a future video, as well as different artifact set build comparisons, and whether or not to build for electro damage bonus or attack percent. So you should definitely subscribe to the channel if you're interested in that. Remember that a lot of the basic rules that apply to building characters still apply to the Raiden Shogun, so don't go too overboard on the energy recharge and strike a balance between damage bonus and attack percent in order to maximize her damage output. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the Raiden Shogun and whether or not you're going to pull for her. How much have you saved up for her, and how excited are you guys for her? Anyways, I hope this video found you guys well. If it helped you out, leave a like on the video. Or if you just like the content that I'm providing, then consider subscribing. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and let me know if I missed anything. Until the next time, I will see you guys later.